What is Redis? Today we're going to learn about a powerful tool in modern computing called Redis. Redis, which stands for Remote Dictionary Server, is an open source in-memory data structure store. It's used as a database, a cache, and a message broker. Redis, known for its lightning-fast performance, it supports various data structures like strings, hashes, lists, sets, and more, making it incredibly versatile. From speeding up websites to handling real-time data analytics, Redis is widely used across numerous industries. It can handle large payloads with minimal latency, making it a go-to choice for high-traffic applications. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Let's cover a little bit of bird's eye concept on where Redis can sit in this system. So if we have a front-end application, this box represents our front end. Let me grab this circle. Awesome. If we have a front end that makes a request, it goes off to our API, and our API layer is going to have a bunch of code, a business logic bit of code, will then fire off in our database. And after this API fires off, the database will return the data and will respond with what we want on the front end. Why do we want to use a Redis? Well, you can see here, I've intentionally drawn this arrow to be really long between the API layer and the database. What this is to represent is that it's very costly and takes a lot of time to go to the database. What we want to consider is potentially putting a cache in our system. And what can happen is you can have a request from the front end makes the request to the API layer, and instead of the API layer going to the database first for the data, it can go to Redis. And if Redis can return to the API and say, hey, I actually have the data, it'll just go to the front end and retrieve that data or respond with that data a lot quicker than what it would have done if it went down the route of going to the database. However, if Redis doesn't happen to have the data, that's okay. The API will then just come back and say, Redis will say, I don't have the data, go ahead and continue to the database. And the database will respond to the API layer and it'll fill our Redis with the data that it needs to. So next time we make that same request, it'll have the data present, and then ultimately the API will give the front end the data. So on the next request, we can go to the API layer and we know Redis will have that data that we want. That's Redis in a nutshell. You can see here I've downloaded Redis into my Next.js server-side rendered application. All I'm doing is instantiating my Redis instance. I'm using it in my endpoint users. I'm pulling in my Redis instance from my lib folder, and I'm first using Redis to rate limit this API so it can't get hit too many times. The second thing I'm doing is using it exactly as I explained. First, I'm checking my Redis cache if Redis has this bit of data, what I labeled user count. All this bit of data does is track the number of users in my application. And you can see here, if I don't have the number of users, I go ahead and set it in my Redis cache, setting the Redis exactly as I mentioned on the concept video. And that, my friends, is a little bit about Redis. Thank you for watching.